right, everyone. Hello and welcome to another Women's Health Tech Wednesdays. My name is Nina Joshi, and I am very excited about this week's episode. Today, we will be bringing on Zsia Rosmarin, who is a CPA partner and Women in Tech team lead, and Victoria Iezzi, who is a CPA and Women's Health and Wellness Tech co-lead at Withum. And this is a very special episode today because today we will be doing more of an office hours type format for any and all questions related to taxes, finances, raising capital. So really, this is your time. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of this screen. And really, this is just an opportunity to ask these two experts anything that you want to know related to taxes and capital. So with that, I would like to formally bring on our guests, Victoria and Zsia. Thank you both so much for being here today.
Happy to be here.
All right, so maybe to kick things off, would love if you can share a little bit more about yourself and the work that you do at Withum.
Sure, thanks Nina. And by the way, so happy to be partnering with you guys. We've already met so many incredible founders, mostly women founders, but of course all founders. So it's been such a great ride so far. And again, thank you for having us. So just a quick intro, I'm Zsia Rosmarin, as Nina said. Been working with women founders for a very long time. I'm a tax partner here and actually lead the tech and emerging growth space for taxes here at Withum. We also have a founders group, and what that means is that we started noticing that, not only on the business side, do you guys have questions, but they're on the individual side, there's a lot of questions, and they sort of just go hand in hand, whether you're operating as a partnership or a C Corp and so forth. So we actually have a great team on the individual side, and that team can help you with all of your personal tax questions and your wealth planning and anything you may be thinking about there. And then of course on the business side. So we are so looking forward to meeting everyone today. We certainly want this to be interactive. Love the women's health space. Victoria and I, and you can see Victoria as the leader of the women's health and wellness vertical that we have here. And we just kind of noticed over the pandemic, so much attention has been brought to women and health and wellness, which is fabulous. So really, really excited to meet everyone today. Hopefully we can provide some valuable insight. We can also provide our contact information if anyone has follow-up questions. So with that, I'll turn it over to Victoria.
Yeah, great, Zsia. Yeah, it sounds like you covered a lot about what we do at Withum, but again, like Zsia said, happy to be here. Definitely passionate about the women's health and wellness space. I have personal connections to it, of course, being a woman, being one of them, of course. But it's just a super exciting space, tons going on, and it's really a cool intersection of really helping people, but then also, really strong business minds coming together. So a little bit about me. I'm on the audit side of things. So Zsia talked about tax. I kind of handle the audit, financial statement prep, review side of things. So I can, help you out with talking about cash management, talking about your financials, what you should think about when you're going out into the funding space and cash burn and those kinds of things. So, again, excited to be here. Definitely see ourselves as an advocate for the women's health and wellness space. So I'm looking forward to hearing your questions and helping in any way we can.
All right, awesome. Well, excited to kind of, get the ball rolling here. So for anyone all of our folks that are listening, please use the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions for these two experts. But in the meantime, we did get some questions ahead of time, so would love to maybe just kind of start there just to get the ball rolling.
Sure.
So the first question that we have is, what are areas of a new business that are often overlooked in terms of expenses? So by that kind of, from your experience, what are some of the expenses to essentially be prepared for that are not often anticipated, when starting a new business?
Yeah, and Zsia, I'll go ahead and grab this one, but feel free to jump in. So there's a lot, right? There's a lot of sneaky things that can come up that you might not anticipate. And I think that's really, it says a lot about a founder, right? When you're a founder and you're starting your own company, you're passionate about the product and passionate about what you're putting out there into the marketplace. And sometimes, you can lose sight of maybe these other expenses that it's not your expertise, or you haven't had it to experience yet. And that's really where, accountants and attorneys come in to really help. That said, accountants and attorneys do cost. So those can be some expenses, I would say, especially attorneys. As you're getting started, attorneys, while they can be expensive and a little bit sometimes sticker shock, there is value in having a strong attorney on your side, in developing those initial documents for for starting up your company. And as you get into funding, and having really strong documentation to make sure you're protecting your equity and protecting what you want, your company vision to look like. And kind of going into that equity, because I know a lot of folks, especially founders out there, series raises and funding and getting that cash in, right, to really get your business off the ground, is key thing, right? Cash is always king. Yeah. So something to really analyze and look at is your cash burn on a monthly basis. That's going to really tell you where are you spending your money, right? So basically, it could be as simple when you're very first starting out, pre-revenue, what cash is coming in, what cash is going out, right? And looking at your bank statement every month and splitting those out. And then what you should be doing is kind of taking a look at what's my balance, what's my bank balance at the end of the month, what's my typical burn on a monthly basis, how much cash am I spending? And then you can kind of see, hey, what's my runway? How much time do I have with the cash that I have on hand, right? So that can give you a little bit of insight there on, okay, maybe, I need to scale up some attorney costs or scale back, right? And just kind of be a little bit more strategic with the money that you have and that you're spending based on what you have in the bank. And that's also helpful when you're actually going for funding, right? When you're looking to either, and we'll talk about this probably a little bit more in a little bit, but when you're getting convertible notes or series rounds or however you're getting that cash, how much do you ask for? How much, what's your ask, right? Like that's, I feel like the biggest thing when you're going to pitch, right? What's your ask? So, when you're looking at your cash burn and you're trying to forecast, okay, how much runway do I need and do I want before I go through another funding round, or before I'm starting to get revenue generating or something like that, you really kind of need to take an honest look at that time frame. Is it 12 months? Is it 24 months? Don't cut yourself short. And it's so important that you have that insight, because it's the worst feeling in the world to run out of cash. It's not fun. And it can affect you personally, if you feel like you need to add some funds of your own in there, invest a little bit more, that can get sticky. So as much forecasting as you can do is just key. So I know, I feel like legal expenses are probably the biggest ones that folks might not expect. I think there's also, if you do have some foreign subsidiaries, things like that, that definitely plays into it as well. Kind of the, foreign tax things to be mindful of. So.
Love it. Very, very
helpful. I think you covered it, right? I do, just to chime in. Obviously I focus more on the tax side, and I know we'll get there, but Victoria, you definitely said something to me that really resonated. Should I go out and connect with an attorney? And we onboard a lot of companies after maybe they've, we definitely work with, pre-seed companies, but most of our companies, to be honest, have already done their first raise. And then we start talking to them, and let's say they're a partnership, for example. And then we're like, well, this is what your agreement says, or this is what you guys are saying. Like, that wasn't the intent. No, that is not what I meant. Well, that's what your agreement says. And guess what? Now your business is worth millions of dollars and you owe that person half of it. And no, that was never the intent. So I do think it's really important. There are also, I'm not going to get granular here, but there are very important elections. It is called an 83B election. If you have stock in a C corporation, you don't make that election in the future, it can be the most costly election you did not make. So getting that attorney right up front on the date of formation is probably one of the most critical steps, if way more than the accountant.
Yep.
So really think about that, because your cash burn will happen a lot quicker if your expenses down the road are getting hit because things weren't done from day one. So I couldn't agree more with you, Victoria.
Absolutely. Wow. Very, very insightful. So we have another question from the audience. So this participant is getting ready to do their first seed round. Very exciting. The question is, what should we be thinking about and who should we be getting advice from for this first seed round?
You want to start?
Yeah, I can start. You know, that's a really great question. I think, of course, you know, look at your, you know, I don't know, obviously your structure and the folks you have involved in your company, right? If you have, you know, some mentors that you have seen have successful rounds, I would say, you know, ask them how did they do it, right? Like get their advice, right? I feel like that's always a good place to start. And also talk to your attorneys. Like I just said before, 100%, I think that is the key thing. And make sure that you have everything that you need documented and the agreements that you need documented going into the series seed. You know, and also, like Zsia said, that it's going to turn out the way you want it in the end. And also, you know, consider, I understand you're getting ready for your series seed, but don't forget there's other, you know, funding opportunities out there that are also good fits for some folks. So there's safe notes, which are really hot right now. You know, those are convertible notes where you get the cash up front and then later it converts to equity. So, you know, sometimes that's what we see a lot of times with early startups, a really great way to go. Also, there are, you know, actual convertible notes that tend to have interest and are considered, you know, debt, but then they'll also convert on the next funding round. So, you know, there's options out there. If, you know, you're pre-seed maybe, or you're getting ready for that seed round, just other options as well. But yeah, I would definitely say talk to your attorneys, make sure your structure is solid and that you have a good game plan for what you want the seed to look like.
And all I would add to that is know why you're raising $1 million, for example. Yeah. What are you going to do with the money? And to Victoria's first point, what's your burn rate? And we have a lot of early founders that get $1 million and they're beside, oh my God, I now have $1 million in the bank. And then we help them and in 3 months it'll be gone. Because R&D is expensive, and we work with a lot of tech companies, and you know, a lot of you are in the health and wellness space, which is going to require tech. It's very expensive and it's usually gone, and you don't want to be sitting there 3 months later and you've burned through all the money. And then the only other thing is when you're looking at debt, understand if you're doing a personal guarantee, right? If you're going to the bank and you're going to borrow or you're going somewhere, are you personally on the hook for that money? That is really important. I know everyone believes in themselves, but you know, with some of these rounds, convertible debt, I don't believe you would be, or sometimes you are and sometimes you aren't. It's called a personal guarantee. I see it as a PG. Know what you're getting yourself into. Yep. Do you have to return that money, and what is going to happen? And if you need more, will they give you more? Is it the right strategic partner for you? Don't get overly excited about somebody giving you $1 million that you know may not be the right partner. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah. And then just to add like one more thing to that, you know, as you are looking through these legal documents that you're getting, right? Like Zsia said, with the personal guarantee, I know the paragraphs, the attorneys draft up these paragraphs that are sometimes difficult to read and not in plain English, but it's so important that you ask, what does this mean? Explain this to me. Explain this to me. You know, I do it myself probably on a daily basis sometimes. Explain this to me like I'm 5, because it's your business, right? If you don't understand what's happening with it, then things can go off the rails really quickly. So take that time. And that's why I know like we sponsor this with Goodwin, and not to like plug Goodwin, but they're really great with this as well. And then, you know, that's why though having, like Zsia said, those key partners, whether it be mentors, board of directors, or even your attorneys, your accountants, to kind of talk you through it and explain, hey, how does this affect me? Well, how is this going to benefit me? How is this going to hurt me? How is this going to affect me 10 years from now when maybe I'm looking to exit? So, you know, it's just so important that you ask those questions. And if you're unsure, just ask. It can't hurt. It doesn't make you look bad. We promise.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Ask questions. And I liked how, you know, you'd mentioned really not just thinking about like partners or investors from just pure like money transaction, but as partners. I think that's also really good advice.
Yeah.
And kind of on that note, when it comes to raising in general, I had a question about, you had mentioned SAFE, you had mentioned convertible debt. What are some of the other just options on the table when it comes to different ways to raise capital, kind of in those earlier stages? If you could kind of give us like a lay of the land, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, right? So of course there's like, friends, family, finance, giving you the equity, right? There's those pieces. But as you're looking to kind of grow and get kind of more substantial investment, typically what we do see is folks starting out with like safe notes and convertible notes. The safe notes, kind of the difference there is they don't have as varying of terms, right? So convertible notes, they can be a little bit more complex. They have interest rates and can have some varying convertible effects later on, where safe notes they're a little bit more cut and dry. And we see people honestly do whole series raises using safe notes or using convertible notes. So like they'll just go out into the marketplace and just give safe notes. And that's kind of what they've been doing instead. So that way it converts to equity on the next round. So maybe later they're ready to do a Series A down the road, it'll all convert at that time. So versus having to worry about principal or paying the cash back. So sometimes, and also the big benefit of doing like convertible notes or safe notes is the legal costs. So as you get into the funding rounds and like the seed rounds and the Series A, there's a lot of legal costs that go into there. The purchase agreements that come out are sometimes 400, 500 pages long, right? So it's an attorney sitting there drafting all that up and you're having to pay for that, right?
Yeah.
Where if you're still early on, you don't, you're just trying to get cash to get through the next year or something like that, then, maybe and obviously everybody's different, right? It's all about your comfort level, what you want with your company. So I don't want to like give advice and then, it's specific for someone. Happy to talk through it separately if somebody has a specific question. But I would say, typically when you're just getting started and kind of looking for a cash inflow, usually it's the safe note, convertible note route that we see people start with first, and then kind of go into the larger once they have a little bit more, they're having revenue or, more cash flow coming in outside of just equity influxes. So hopefully that helps. I'm not sure, Nina, if that kind of captured your question.
Yeah, no, that was perfect.
Awesome.
And then also just for the chat, it's SAFE, not face, so SAFE, SAFE.
Oh yeah, SAFE. Yep, SAFE.
What is it? A simple agreement for future equity.
It is.
It's an acronym.
Look at you. Wow. Yeah, if you Google safe note, I promise you'll see tons of articles out there. It's a really hot topic right now. Especially as there's all these transactions and things going on in the marketplace. Safe notes have been a pretty good, reliable thing for early startups.
That's really, really helpful. Awesome. And then kind of also another question that we got from the audience, how much money should startups budget for consultants, advisors, advisory boards, et cetera? Is there kind of a percentage that is advisable?
It kind of comes, and Zsia, correct me, if you feel differently, but I feel like it kind of comes down to your individual comfort level and where you see your company going, right? And what capital you have. If you have availability for capital, and you can, budget a lot for those folks, then do it. But if you're kind of bootstrapped, talk to those folks you want to work with. And I think that this is actually, for me, a true sign of a good advisor, right? Somebody who sees potential in your company and is willing to work with you on fees and things like that early on, because they see your growth, they see where you're going, and they know that because if you think about it from an advisor standpoint as well, it's a little bit of an investment on our end too, right? So we're coming into this as a relationship. It's not just one-sided where, like going to buy a widget at the store, like we're a service, we get it, like you're getting started and we want to be there to passionately support you as well. So, I would say when you're talking to advisors, have that conversation with them and just be honest, be like, hey, this is what I want to do. What's that going to cost me? And is there anything, it can't hurt to ask for a discount, and just be honest with them about where you are from a cash flow standpoint as well. Because they can't help you also if you don't communicate that information. Because I know if folks come to us and say, we're strapped for cash, okay, that we're going to have a different route that maybe we advise them on versus another. So again, it's just being transparent and having those conversations. And unfortunately, Zsia, you might have a set percentage that you typically recommend. It's kind of a company by company basis.
I totally agree. I don't necessarily see a percentage. I will tell you, companies that are on board, we look at it and it's mostly legal fees are the number one things that we do see, and I'll call it a trial balance, but on your expenses, it's the number one cost as in addition to like R&D, which sometimes is just salary related. But I will tell you this, law firms, advisors, they can all take advisory shares. And I know we didn't bring that up. Accounting firms can't take advisory shares just because we have to adhere by independence rules. So we can't be invested in a company that we're working with. So a little bit different, but we have seen so many attorneys take advisory shares, and we're like, too bad we didn't have that. And they're exiting, and we get the cap tables, and we're like, oh my gosh, they did well on this. We're like, okay. So they made that just maybe an option there. They'll get paid in options or shares versus no cash.
I didn't even know. That's very interesting. Did not know that was an option. So like kind of going the equity route with some of these experts as well.
We wish we could a lot of times.
Definitely.
But we can't.
I love that. So also have another question related to, founders that are in their kind of like the first few years of their business. So the question is, for founders who are maybe in their first few years of the business, working out of their homes, what impact does their business have on their personal taxes?
So the question really goes to what type of entity are you? Okay. And on your personal return, you can have a Schedule C, which is just your own business. And that is just filed on your personal tax return. You can be an LLC, which is also a partnership. And that is an entity that's owned by 2 or more people. And you set up your percentages and how you're going to share, what you're each going to contribute. And that flows again to your personal return. Then there is the option of a C corporation. A C corporation is a separate legal entity, and you would own the stock of that entity. Okay, so that entity would file its own taxes, pay its own taxes. You do not receive the income or loss is not taxed to you personally. You only pay tax if you sell it, or it's almost if you own the stock of like IBM. There are pros and cons to LLCs. There are pros and cons to C corps. I can't say there's any right or wrong. I will say be careful with S corporations because it is hard to get out of an S corporation. And when you have an investor, normally in an S corporation, you can only have individual shareholders. Okay, so we see a lot of S corps formed, and then an investor wants to come in and they will automatically terminate your S corp, and that could actually be costly. So I don't love the S corp. I'm not saying if you have an S corp, anybody who's on the phone is panicking right now, it's okay. I also notice a lot of our startups will start with an LLC, and then an investor will come in and automatically say, we only invest in C corps, Delaware C corp. So we're having you convert. The conversion is normally tax-free from LLC to C. It's okay. There's just a lot of pros and cons. I think we actually have an article that we're happy to share. Awesome. There's no right or wrong. Like Victoria keeps saying, it's such a personal decision. But working from home, it doesn't really matter. Everyone is working remotely these days, whether you're going to WeWork space or you're working from your house or working from somewhere, wherever you're working from, that does create what we call nexus. You probably have a filing requirement in the state. So Victoria's sitting in Texas right now. That's why she's so happy. She will, well, she's lucky. Texas doesn't have a personal tax return. So everybody on this call moved to Texas or Florida. I am so fortunate to sit in New Jersey where there's a high personal tax rate. Because I'm here, I work here, I have to file here. So you don't want to miss the state side of it. But yeah, depending on what type of entity you have set up will determine how that impacts your personal tax filings. Personal tax filings are due 4/15, so hopefully everybody on this call has a handle on those. It's all good. You can go on extension. And if you go on extension, those are now due October 15th. Of course, it's an extension of time to file, not an extension of time to pay.
Got it.
So,
Very, very helpful. I just realized that we're, 2 minutes away. There's so many questions. And you just, I think maybe a great way to kind of end, and hopefully, we definitely need to have a part 2 of this discussion.
Sure.
But, one of the things I think that, just from this conversation has made me realize about just how there's so many options out there. There's just so many ways that, you can just get information. So I'd love to learn from both of you, for those that are new to the space, just kind of want a basic just understanding of like financial literacy when it comes to like what there is to do. How can folks kind of get some of that education? Like, are there any resources that you would recommend, or kind of places to start just so that they can kind of, beef up their own understanding?
We did a great document with Goodwin on the common pitfalls that we should really share to this entire group, and we can send that to you. It was posted on social media, but it was such a great article only because it was like the common.
Love that.
I don't want to call them mistakes. I think we
Things
call
to
them
consider.
pitfalls.
Yeah.
So we can certainly share that with you and maybe post it to all these people here, or even just repost it on social media.
Yeah.
I think it's a good place to start. I don't know, Victoria, if you have anything else to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that that's a great spot. And then also, there are resources out there. I believe Masterclass recently came out with an accounting course. I haven't seen it, so I don't want to like bet for it, but that's pretty cool. If you're looking to just understand accounting a little bit, what are debits and credits? And I would just say, this sounds cheesy, but talk to an accountant, right? Come have a call with us. It can't hurt. It's your company, and getting it set up with the right partners early on is only going to set you up for success later. So, reach out. We're happy to have calls, half hour to discuss what's going on with your company and see if maybe we can help. So yeah, definitely, I would say reach out, and you can Google a little bit, but just be careful what you find on the internet. It's not always it's not always accurate or correct. So that's why I always say check with your accountant.
I love it. Well, I mean, that is, I think, a really good place to end. Thank you both so much for just providing so much context, not only on the tax side of the house, but also on just the funding and the fundraising. These are all really important, questions, really important processes that will really set up the success of a business. So really appreciate you both, sharing your expertise with all of us.
And we're happy to do a part 2 if whenever you'd like to. So happy to continue the dialogue, and let us know if there's any follow-up.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely gonna get a part 2 scheduled on the books.
You got it.
All right. So for everyone on the call, please be sure to tune in next week for our episode with Biomarin with Dr. Ebony. We're going to have a really great conversation next Wednesday. We also have our digital health symposium on the 31st. So please be sure to register. All the information is going to be in the chat. Wanted to give one last huge shout out to Zsia and Victoria for an amazing conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was really great to be here and great to participate.
Yeah, really. Thank you. It's been our pleasure.
Awesome. And on that note too, also I'd like to thank our sponsors, Goodwin and Withum, for sponsoring this amazing conversation. And thank you all for joining, and see you next Wednesday. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.